7:02. I'd like to call to order the Nottingham Budget Committee December 5th meeting. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Donna, can you please start the roll call?
Donna Danis.
Robert Kelly.
Karen Quinn.
Tim DeBrio.
Owen Friend Gray.
Michael Kelly.
Sandra Jones.
Charlotte Fife.
Danielle Roy.
And for guests this evening, we have
Susan Levinson and Bill Roy. Bill is the BA.
yeah. Excused absences this evening, Jeff and Jill both emailed us in advance, so they are excused. Review of meeting minutes. We'll start with the 14th, November 14th. Did anybody have any notes, comments, questions?
So, Owen, I had some that weren't necessarily corrections, but things that I think might be helpful clarifications for people who are just reading the minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah,
And if you go to, starting with line 25, it says the chief also increased the training line to reflect PSTC requirements. And I just thought it might be helpful to spell out what that is, because
yeah, no, it's a good call.
people won't know what that is. And I don't know.
Does anybody here know what that is?
Standards training.
There we go.
Yeah, so it might just be helpful to put that in there and then parens.
Police standards training.
No one here knows what that is?
We do. Tim just told us.
Standards.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Something.
On line 36, it said, Chief Woodman said this area is new for her. And I think specifically what she was talking about was emergency management. And I think, again, it would be helpful to say emergency management is new to her. Again, I mean, some of this is, some of it might be picky, and you guys can tell me if I'm being picky, but, on line 67, talking about, Ellen said, she and the BOS were trying to figure out how to move forward and communicate to the public that a qualified professional would require. And because of the break in the paragraphs, I just thought it would be helpful to say qualified professional to manage the fire department would require.
Yeah.
I was trying to look at it from the perspective of people who, you know, not attending the meeting, but trying to get
No,
stuff.
it's a good point.
If you go to line 141 and 142, I think COA is supposed to be COLA.
Oh, yeah. Good catch.
Again, tell me if this is going too far, but on line 158, and Tim, you might be able to speak to this, but, it said there are no current lawsuits being handled, and the town utilizes the legal services of NHMA when needed. And I think, Tim, the point that you and Ellen made was that you can only go so far with NHMA. They will only answer general questions, so it's not like the town can use NHMA instead of a law firm.
Yeah, I don't know, was that under assessing though? Because legal is a totally different thing.
No, it was under legal.
We
That's
did
what I'm saying,
legal,
but it's
we
under-
did legal so fast it probably didn't get
Yeah.
broken apart.
Yeah,
So I think that should almost be broken out separately, because it sounds like it's under assessing and there's no lawsuits from.
correct, correct,
Software support costs do increase annually is assessing,
Yeah,
yeah,
and then,
And
but then it
and then
should
was
be a new
legal.
paragraph and
Yeah.
say legal.
yeah.
And then to your point on 159, maybe when possible is more accurate than when needed.
Or for general inquiries.
Okay.
I think the point she was trying to make was.
Or unspecific.
They don't replace the law firm.
Correct, yeah,
So for general inquiries is what we're going with?
Works for me.
yeah.
Unless anybody else has another suggestion.
Only two more. On line 174, I might be reading it wrong, but I think there's something missing. Because it says right now, comma, the 457B, comma, which is the full-time employees accepting fire and police because they are grouped in New Hampshire retirement. It just seemed to me like there was something missing.
I guess, what I would say is right now, the 457B, which is a, employer-sponsored retirement plan for all full-time employees, accepting fire and police because they're grouped to New Hampshire retirement.
Yeah.
So,
Editing, so just after the 457B,
Yeah.
just adding, which is an employer-sponsored plan.
which is employer
Retirement plan.
retirement plan
Offered
for-
to all full-time employees.
Oh, right, yeah, went down. Two, okay, that makes sense.
And then the last one on 267, again, I might be splitting hairs, but, surplus can be used to offset the bottom line, however, Nottingham has a fund balance policy that was adopted. I'm wondering if we should say general fund balance policy, because that's the specific,
Which line, Sharon? I'm sorry, yeah, what line is it?
267.
Thank you.
Again,
As a general fund
Yeah.
balance
correct,
policy?
it's just,
I mean, they're used interchangeably, but
Yeah,
but
it
for
doesn't
the
hurt to have
person
a
who's
little more
reading it
clarity.
knows we have a lot of different funds, right?
yeah.
A little more description doesn't
Yeah,
hurt.
yeah, and that's it.
So what are we changing that to? I was just,
Adding the word general in front of fund to be more descriptive of which fund it is we're talking about. Okay, so proposed changes, line 25, spelling out PSTC for police standard training. 36, changing this area to emergency management. 67, adding to manage the fire department between professional and wood. 141 and 142, changing COA to COLA. 158, creating a new section called legal after the first sentence. 159, changing when needed to for general inquiries. 174, adding an employer-sponsored retirement plan offered to, in between is and all, so the last end of the sentence will read, which is an employer-sponsored retirement plan offered to all full-time employees. And then 267, adding the word general in front of fund balance. I will entertain a motion to pass the meeting minutes from November 14th with these amendments.
So,
moved.
Movement by Sandra Jones,
second?
second by Tim DeBrio. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 9-0. November 21st meeting minutes. What do you got, Don?
I got nothing.
Oh, look at that! There we go. Pretty good. I didn't have anything either. Did anybody have anything on the 24th? 21st, excuse me? Okay, if that's the case, I will entertain a motion to approve the Tuesday, November 21st, 2024 meeting minutes as written.
So moved.
Moved by Sandra Jones.
Second.
Second by Donna Danis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
I have to abstain. I wasn't
Abstain?
here.
Yeah, so the motion passes 8-0-1.
Did you abstain as well, Charlotte?
The one is
Eight
abstained.
zero two.
I
did this. I'm abstaining.
Abstention, not
Okay.
no.
Two abstentions then, so 7-0-2. For the folks who were not present, being Mike and Charlotte. Huh?
Las Vegas area code, in case anybody's wondering.
It's a fascinating little piece of trivia I did not know.
Yeah, you do.
And how do you
Now
know
I
that
do.
so well, Tim?
I have somebody I call there very often.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Public comment is next on our list, which, seeing nobody from the public, move on to initial proposed school budget review.
Well, hello,
Floor is
everyone.
yours.
I'm sorry.
I said the floor is yours. I cut you off to,
Thank you.
as you were getting started.
So we went through a preliminary budget last night. We had, at that point, about a 4.5% increase. And again, we're very preliminary. We are still looking at some, what we're referring to as watch items, fine tuning some of the numbers. There were a few adjustments made today.
Yes.
And so the budget you're looking at right now is a little bit over 5%. So the focus points for us this year are the building facilities piece, which we're trying to fine tune. We're looking at the, when you see there's some large items in there. So we're gonna be taking a look at that and looking for a little bit more specifics around what those numbers are going to be actually focused on. Technology is another one. We're looking at some Chromebooks, and again, an area that we're looking at. We're gonna get more detail on that. We wanna ensure that we have the appropriate technology in place to deliver services. There's been some talk of Chromebooks for teachers. Last night, there was additional talk of maybe using laptops instead, so we need to understand how technology is being delivered in the classroom clearly. I mean, we have obviously an understanding of it, and we talk about it a lot, but how are we budgeting for it? And then curriculum, it's the 6th year right now for our math programming. We currently use Math Expressions K through 3, and we use Math in Focus 4 up to 8, including algebra. Math in Focus was put in place maybe, gosh, I'm gonna say 6-7 years ago. At the time, we were using Everyday Math. It was not a focus program for us, and so Math in Focus has really delivered. So we will be updating that on our 6-year cycle, and that's $106,000 for Math in Focus and Math Expressions in total. So those are the costs you see here tonight. The other piece of it is that we've experienced higher than typical for us insurance costs. So they're ranging from, anywhere from 14 to,
Yeah, in the past, they used to just give a guaranteed maximum rate, and that went across all insurance premium plans. Doesn't matter what plan you're on. It was all like, last year I think it was like 13.2% across the board, but now each plan has its own rate increase, but there's no more guaranteed maximum. They gave us the actual number before we started the budget process, and that number is not going to change. So I believe in the past, there were some hopes maybe that number would go down a little bit, but this year it is, the numbers that you have, actually they're in the binders,
yep.
is the numbers that are not changing.
So some ways that's better, because it was an estimate before, and then based on their criteria, that could have gone, up to that particular maximum, guaranteed maximum. So this is better for us to know these things earlier. The other thing is that we are working on a paraprofessional contract, so that will also be on the warrant. And when we get further into this in the coming weeks, we're gonna be looking at warrants and deciding what we'd like to do. We may place a warrant for some facilities work. We, as some of you may know, the school was closed today. It was essentially closed in the morning because of the weather for a 2-hour delay. However, one of our contractors was in the building working on some pre-planned work that they have been doing since October and finishing it up. So the decision was made this morning that, just in case there's any sort of glycol odor or anything, let's just close for today. But there's been no escalation of the issues in the school. It wasn't a new issue. So we feel pretty comfortable with the contractors that we have. They are reviewing everything. We, as you know, for being on the budget committee, we have capital reserves in place. We have maintenance programs in place. We have appropriate staffing in place. So The building is aging in some areas, some of the piping may need to be, replaced. We've done 39 feet of it already. We have 2 new boilers, so we'd like to get in front of it and not have an issue with the glycol. So that's the first acute phase, is to take care of the glycol and the issues that it is creating, and then there'll be a complete analysis and a plan to prioritize what we need to do next and what needs to happen. So that's kind of where we are. Those are the issues that we're working on, and we can go through this. And it, again, very preliminary, and I think that we'll be fine-tuning it a bit in the coming weeks.
One other area to note is also, when we're talking about the health insurance, not only are we in a pair negotiation, but the way the contract was structured for teachers, it does affect the health insurance as well. So if you are looking at the new revised proposed budget, the number in there for health insurance is if the district were to assume 100% liability for paying those premiums. We don't expect that. It was just a worst case scenario, so it's always easier to take out than it is to add in. So it's a placeholder number.
Where would that be, Bill?
It would be the teacher retirements, so anybody in the CBA for our teachers, that'd be teachers, special education teachers, guidance, OT. If you're looking at object codes, it'd be 5211.
But I think that'll be refined further as we go.
Yeah, it'll be revised, it'll be
I was
revised,
looking at that,
So it's in right now
133,000.
at the highest possible placeholder.
yeah.
Now, did insurance go up last year, like 100-something thousand, also health insurance?
I don't remember the exact number, but it was significant.
Yeah, prior to that, though, we had very minor adjustments, so last year, we didn't experience as much as some other folks in the state did. We had an increase, but it wasn't as much, but this year definitely is a
Pretty
little
much on
unusual
par.
for us.
I just have
Yeah.
one question. It's not about the budget specifically, but I know we just got our tax rate set for the town. And I think people are pretty happy because it was a pretty significant reduction by almost over $1. But I think the misconception is that the default budget for the town was a big part of that. Could you explain, I guess, how the calculation for that worked and how the school was
Yeah, it was part of the
responsible
unreserved fund balance that was given back to the town. After we were, as we know, last year, it was my first year here, we were fine tuning some of the past accounting practices that we've had and making sure what we had, and we ended up with more of a surplus than we expected. So that's why the tax rate went down. It was given back. We even kept
Can
some
you
of
give us
it.
the dollar amount that was given back to the
Well,
town?
it was the 909, I
It was,
believe.
yeah, it was 909.
And,
$909,000.
right, and you coming on the heels of last year being at 80,000. So for 2 years in a row, some of the estimates along the way were,
But I guess just the challenge.
concern
is
now
gonna
for
be
next year.
forward.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think for the taxpayers to understand
Right,
is that going forward, this is a nice tax break and not to
Mm-hmm.
feel that, oh, the default budget for the town is actually cost
So that's a good clarification.
because it's not what happened.
Okay.
it's not the default budget, it has really nothing
Has
to
nothing
do
to
with
do with
that.
that.
You're saying
But
the
that's what
fact that
most
we were
people feel.
on a default budget.
That's what I would have.
So
That's
that
what people
has,
assume.
Yeah.
no,
That
that
was
is
my
not
assumption.
it, but the
Yeah.
issue is, I'll be done in just one second. The issue is that we had a higher balance left, and if you look at the valuation of the town this year, it was, I think, 804, right in the 800. So if you return 800,000, that's $1 per thousand. We did more than that, so we gave more than $1 per thousand back. But one of our goals, obviously, is to really manage this, because it's not helpful to be having these peaks and valleys with tax rates. So you want to kind of,
Stabilize it.
yeah, stabilize that. I think, next year, when I was looking on the DRA website, it looks like our valuation that they're proposing for next year is much higher. It's 1.2.
Well, that's a significant.
Yeah, the
Well, we're at
1.2.
66% right now valuation, so.
Yeah.
Or up for reval next year, so.
Right, so that number is pretty significantly higher, so that's gonna have some impacts as well. So I think we all on the board realize we need to be cognizant of this throughout the year, and we want meaningful financials that can be used throughout the year to make decisions.
I just think that's gonna be your
Challenge
challenge
to-
presenting to the deliberative is.
Yes.
How did you manage to have $1 million surplus?
Right.
That you didn't use?
That we didn't really, yeah, we expected it to be much lower.
That is a lot compared to existing years. The numbers are 2021's 430,000 returned. 2022 was 529,000. 2023 was because of the boiler, which I understand you had to pay for
Yes.
the boiler, so that was a big chunk of it. I think it was like 168 return or 80,000, something like that. And then 2024 is 909,000 then.
Yeah.
That's, I've never seen that number before.
That's an issue with how you're really managing the situation, and there needs to be an awareness of that throughout the course of the year about where you're tracking.
And I think communicating to the public about, again, and I think, not to drain in the school, because I know you're in a default budget, but your default budget is in a different year than ours is, the town, I say ours, the town, and we're also in the 4% tax cap, so I think just people are assuming that these things are leading to the lower tax rate, and it's really not. I think 88 cents of that was the school, so,
Right.
dollar over.
So we do need to communicate, but I don't think the amount of our budget that we're currently working with really has nothing to do with any of it. It's the budgeted amount from June 30th last year, so this default budget. And this is a budget as well, our current budget that we're working on. We're watching it closely because there are some expenses that are beyond our control that relate to move-ins in the town. And we've had a dozen or so high school move-ins over the course of the summer and continuing into the fall. We believe obviously related to the housing boom that's going on in town. That's approximately $20,000 per that was not in the budget. So that's something that's a significant issue as we're moving forward right now. We'll have to be making some line item adjustments to cover for that.
So that's 20,000 per student?
Yes.
Correct.
Regular ed.
Yeah, around there, because I thought it was around 21,000, someone
Yeah.
said, I think, last year.
Yeah, if you've got 9 or 10 new kids in your elementary school, it's a little different, but this is very specific to a number that we have to pay, so it's an impact.
How many students are currently in the school now?
Right now,
Yeah.
elementary.
525.
By 25, thank you.
That's the highest it's been since 2019, right?
Right. So we're recovering
And-
from the low numbers that were happening during COVID.
Before we go any further, just for the record, Rhonda, can you introduce yourself and get yourself on the mic, just for the record keeper?
Rhonda Hasbrook, Superintendent of Schools. My apologies for being late, but I was looking at the latest reports from the service today and sending out an updated email to the community.
Yep, no worries, just want to make sure, because the note taker does it all off video.
Oh, thank you.
So
I-
having the names right is helpful.
Thank you. And I wanted to comment on the budget surplus as well, return to the town, that we did receive an extra 101,000 as we finalized, with our separation from SAU 44, that, in revenue. And we also received, if you recall, the additional adequacy aid of 186,000, I believe, that contributed to that. And as we said, when we did the special vote with the town, we had used that for different appropriations, which then gave us extra money in our operating budget, and we said we would be very careful. We said specifically how we'd use the 186,000, which gave us other money in our operating budget that we didn't then spend. We were very, very careful, as we said we would be to the taxpayers, which then gave us the surplus in the budget. We were very, very conscious.
So do I interpret this right, in that you essentially had 200 plus in sort of unanticipated revenue?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But then that 186 could have come straight to the town then, in another example, rather than going to the school.
Well,
It
no, it
essentially
has to
did.
go to
It
the
essentially
town.
did, but it
did,
could
and
have,
we returned it to the town
rather
as
than
we
that
said we
special
would.
vote and hearing where it went by way of the school back to the town, it could have come directly.
We could have brought it directly to the town. It was a sizable amount. And again, these are factors in that number, but they're not the majority of the number. So
Right.
we will be analyzing it and determining exactly where it came from.
Like I said, and I know you all understand, it's that's a big dip, and then I have a feeling taxpayers are gonna feel it.
And the
on the other
ESSER, the ESSER 3 funds, we ended up using towards the boiler replacement. And those funds will all end, so they have all ended.
Right.
Was there any way that the school could have used the 900,000 for any of the immediate need things we're talking about, like the facilities, things that are gonna be
I
warrants
think that if
this
we
year?
knew that we had that amount, because we're always trying to be careful, but that is a mixed situation as well, because you don't want to be spending, you know, we're trying to be cognizant of the fact, if we did have a legitimate overage, if you will, I think taxpayers' preference is that they see it back and they do see that the tax rate is improved by that. On the other hand, there's a case to be made for using some of it. So I think that we probably would have looked at some of our items in our building and maybe put some funds toward that.
Or a capital improvement plan could have been,
But it just wasn't realized in time? Is that
Right,
what you're
it was toward the end of the year, we saw a change and it was being reconciled and
was.
over the course of the summer, so it was really probably September. So our goal is to have, the financial statements as accurate as possible throughout the course of the year, because accounting statements and accounting financial statements are not just for the fun of reporting, they're to be used to manage your organization, so.
I have a quick question. Now, is it true that the states have reduced in their special education, so would you try to boost that fund up? Instead, you think that's more important?
I think that the special education account is very important. We've gone from approximately 88% reimbursement to 66% reimbursement. Because what the state budgeted, don't quote me exactly on this, but I believe there was, I have it in last night's board report, which I don't have with me.
$16.4 million gap.
Thank you. 16.4, I was gonna say 18, but $16.4 million gap in what the state budgeted versus what came in for reimbursements from from districts around the state. So they had, when they went to divvy it up, they're that much short. So instead of getting our 88% reimbursement, we're only getting 66% this year. That's significant.
Right, I'm just saying.
What does it do? It's pushed down and it falls on local districts to fund special education.
What is the balance in that fund now? Because this seemed a little low last year. You know what I mean?
The capital reserve fund for special
Reserve, I had
education.
172,000, but that was last year.
Right. We are hearing from our student services director who spoke last night that statewide, they are seeing students coming in with more difficult, more complex needs. And it is a statewide issue. We always ran as a school below the state average for students needing these supports. We are now looking at, state average was around 15%. Right now, it's about 19% statewide, and we are hovering right around that. So we have experienced this. We have complex needs coming in. We're pleased that we have the preschool in-house, so we have those touch points in place for those students with needs, where the whole school can really focus on them and they can move through the school feeling known and seen and understanding their needs.
Makes
So
sense.
that makes a lot of sense for those kids, but as our student services director stated last night, there is research on this and they're trying to pinpoint what the actual causes are, but the needs are becoming more complex.
So again, just so I want to make sure I understand the data, what you're saying is that 19% of the students have complex needs that the school.
They may not have complex needs, they're probably on a continuum, but they fit the need for an IEP. And so we have 19% of students in the special education area.
And again,
Roughly.
that's about the state average now.
That is, we're roughly at the state average now. Typically, we were below state average, and the state average itself has grown.
So is this reflected in this proposed budget?
Yes. Yes.
Anything else on this budget that you want to kind of bring to our attention? Obviously, we're seeing it for the first time. You guys saw it for the first time last night, so this is all fresh off,
Right.
hot off the press, so to speak,
But yeah, there's a line item that we have in there, we talked about it last night, is for the move-in tuitions. It seems like it's a really high number. Right now it's at 160,000, that's assuming if there's about 4 students per school, like for Dover and then Co-Brown. So that is something we talked about last night, maybe moving that to a warrant article, maybe using, we didn't know, it was just something, so when you're going through it, you'll see it, it's a significant high number, it's in the 1100 function codes.
Can I just ask, so what we're looking at here, because there's
Yeah.
like, there's
I will go through what you have.
You're gonna go
Yeah,
through
we'll go through all of
kind
that.
of like, not sure what we're supposed to be looking at.
Okay, yeah, we can lay it out for you. The other piece too to be aware of is that next year, we'll be looking at developing a transportation contract. We'll be negotiating that. We'll be negotiating with the teachers. So we likely will have a Co-Brown contract as well. So you'll see that reflected in the estimate for legal.
Yeah, that's what happened today. There was no buses, I think, for Dover, since they didn't have a 2-hour delay. So the buses were running, and then they canceled it, so I don't think.
They did have the buses.
There's still buses.
2-hour delay.
There was a note that said there wouldn't be, but
There
there
wasn't.
did
Yeah, that's
run.
what I thought.
There wasn't a Dover bus this
Yes, there
morning.
was.
Yes,
I
there
called
was.
the high school to call my son out, and they said, there's still a bus, it's just 2 hours late.
Right, so they delayed it.
Delayed.
But the notification said there wasn't, there was, but yeah.
And that's another thing, we still are experiencing bus driver shortage, and to the extent that Dale Transportation is able to have additional bus drivers coming up, the focus will be on replenishing that high school route again.
You
for
just got
Dover.
one back, right?
I beg your
You got
pardon?
one
We
bus
did,
driver.
yeah, just
Only took a
started
year and a
this
half,
week,
but-
yeah.
Yeah. And we have looked at bus ridership, and as we always do, so that is something that, that is certainly high on the list of concerns.
Any other budget-specific questions?
All right, I guess we'll just go forward. All right, so everybody has this binder now, so I just brought this for everybody today. In your binder, you have some information, like what is a function code and an object code. It's just a way to identify certain aspects of the budget and where it should lie. Then you have the proposed budget. So you have one that was, I believe it was sent to you or given to you prior to this meeting, but there have been numbers that have changed since that meeting. So you'll have, in the binder, you'll have one that reads at the top, says revised proposed budget 25-26 as of 12/5. That is the most up-to-date budget, but some people may have made notes on the previous budget, so I guess it's really up to the committee which budget they want, like, line they wanna go to.
Seen one yet, have we?
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, I didn't see, no.
I don't
This is the
Okay,
first
so-
time we've-
Okay, so this makes it even easier. Alright, so if you see the one that says revised budget proposed 25-26 as of 12/5, that'll be the budget that we walk through. Are you okay with that?
I'm
So-
fine with
so
however you
just-
want to do it.
What's all the rest of this then?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through the rest of it. So the next one is the default budget. You already had a copy of that back in October.
He's going by the tabs, Donna.
I'm going by the tabs.
Okay, so I'm still stuck on, in
You
this
got
first
this
tab.
is
You want to give her the
First two
inventory
pages,
of what you
revenue.
handed out,
Okay.
and then she can figure out where to pop it in her binder.
What's all in the binder, so I put
Save
together.
it.
Oh, okay.
It says 2025, 2026, the tab.
Oh, mine's not right. This one is.
So this is just an overview. And here, this is the difference.
That's just revenues. Okay,
And the next section is the expenses by function code.
okay. So we're not looking at that, we're looking at this?
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't look at that, since if this is your first time looking at
Yeah.
that, don't bother looking at it. That
Okay,
was done
fine.
based on requests from last year, the one
Yeah,
page.
I got it, I got it, I got it.
Alright, and then, if we just go through the tabs real quick, the rest of the tabs is, proposed budget, you'll see some changes from the default budget, you'll see some changes from the one you previously had. You got the one pager at the top, but then you have a copy of what the updated one looks like. The one pager was a request that was asked for last year, instead of just handing out a new packet every time, it's just what's changed since that time. Then after that, you have a tax impact, which is not filled out yet, we're still working on that. Same with the warrant articles. The revenue statement is as of yesterday. Part of the packet is where the current revenues are standing at this time of year. So you have that, you'll probably get that updated at every budget meeting. But they're just the dates that printed on the bottom, so you'll know which one's the newest, which one's the oldest. The next one is staff with salaries and benefits. Right now, there's no staff list in there, as we mentioned before, going through negotiations for the health insurance for the teachers. But you will get that, once that's finalized, you will get an updated copy to see where the staff list is regarding salaries and benefits. And you'll see the New Hampshire retirement system, that number has changed since last year. Every 2 years, they change the retirement contribution rates, and this year it actually went down instead of going up.
So that's what the school has to contribute,
That's what
their
school district.
portion. And then the employee portion is separate.
Yes, there's a teacher portion, then there's the employee portion. The teacher for this year is 19.23, and the employees is 12.75%. And the next tab is the Health Trust benefits renewal package. It's all the information that we got from Health Trust regarding our premiums and our packages. And also an explanation of why is there an increase in the plan. So if you were to go to the very back 2 pages, rating process, capital risk charge, That explains part of it. There's expendable trust limitations. Then there's special ed. Next tab is a special ed out of district placement and transportation. Right now that is blank, but at the next meeting you should have a copy for that. You got the current enrollment report as the last tab. And with the enrollment in there.
Thank you.
Well, so we'll go to the first page of the budget. At the top it reads fiscal year, so FY 25-26 proposed budget revenue draft. And at the bottom left-hand corner, to make sure you're reading the right one, it should read printed 12/5/24.
At 2:38 PM.
That's the front page, but yes, that is the package. But if you want to go to the next page. Yeah, but that is.
133.
It says 133, 43. Yeah,
It's printed at 1:30, yeah.
that's it. So everybody's on the same one, okay. So as we go forward, appropriations is the amount for the taxation. Right now, that appears to be a 5.74 increase over last year, with a total of 13,347,788.44. How we get that number is we look at the budget, see what the budget number is, subtract all the revenues, and the balance is typically appropriations. And there is, on this sheet, you'll see general fund, which is Fund 1, and then you'll see the food service fund, which is Fund 4. And those are all on the same page for revenue. So you'll see an appropriation when we go down the list for food service as well. It used to be combined with the general fund, but it's better to show what the true appropriations are, where it's going for each fund. All right, does anybody have questions? Does anybody want to flow?
We'll probably stop you if we have questions. I don't want to be trying to dive too far into this, obviously, on our level, just because this is a draft.
Yes.
So really, at this point, we kind of just want to make sure we're getting our head around the big major
And if there's
things.
any questions, we can follow up. in the
And
next
then
meeting.
we'll have questions if they pop up from folks. But if you want to kind of go, I mean, I don't even know if you need to go page by page, but whatever you think is appropriate for things that we should know that are going to
Sure, we'll
be,
go page by page, but we won't go line by line.
Yeah.
That way, if there's anything that pops out.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe by like the function, so you can highlight the,
All right, so the appropriations, yep, we did get an increase in adequate aid, and we also got an increase in the SWEPT aid, the local education tax as well. Those are the estimates from the state as of November 15th, 24.
And just a reminder for folks, we went over this last year. Brackets are negative, and when it's in revenue, that's actually meaning we're getting more. So
Exactly,
the
yes.
negatives in the revenue is more money into the school, not less, which
Right.
is on the expense side, it will be less. It's opposite, but just something to keep in mind, because I remember we went over this last
We
year.
did, absolutely, I remember that now, forgot about it until you just said it. All right, so that is good that we got a little bit more money. I also increased indirect costs revenue. It's something new we started last year. The district wasn't claiming indirect cost revenue, but each year the indirect cost rate changes. So, and we don't happen to know that rate until about April. So right now, I raised it up a little bit based on where we're trending right now, and I think we're gonna, a couple years, we'll kind of see where the pattern lies.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Indirect cost rate revenue?
Yeah.
That's, what is it? Okay, it is the overhead, it's the portion that we get from grants. So that covers any kind of printing, electricity, overhead, internet. It is a portion that the district can claim for, administrative costs to run the federal grants.
Okay.
Sure. All right, the next part, so at the end, general fund, you'll see a total proposed budget of $17,120,177.58. Now keep in mind, like, as I mentioned, that is just general fund. It's about 2/3 of the way down, if anybody's looking. Can't find it. So that right there is this even 5% increase according to the revenue page. And that's just revenues, that's not everything else. All right. All right, next section is the food service revenues. As I mentioned previously, we do have some appropriations there as well for food service. That is $135,640.42. That is an increase of $17,783 from last year. And as we go down, we have something new this year is vending machine sales. We only got that vending machine about April and May of last year, so I don't exactly know a number to put in there. I would assume that it could be safe to say about $1,000 or $1,500.
For my son, yeah.
It's popular.
My kid helps a lot, don't
It is
worry.
popular, but unfortunately at a school, sometimes it breaks down a little more frequently than it should. So that's why I want to go higher. I would love to go higher, but I want to be conservative and be realistic. So that is something that we've talked about at the school board meeting as well. State child nutrition, feral nutrition, it's a safe number because that doesn't really change. And if you go to the back page of number 2 there, at the very bottom, sorry, at the very top, is the total budget for food service, excuse me. I have $228,740.42. For the grand total, adding both of those funds together, of $17,349,918 even. Any questions on revenue before we go to the expenses? Okay. Now we're moving on. Now it's gonna see at the top there reads FY 25-26 proposed budget expenses draft. Same date as being printed before. That's page 1. Page 1 starts with the 1100 function code, and that is regular education function code. Salaries for teachers, based on the current CBA and track changes, it is $2,450,746. That's with 34 general education teachers with the CBA increases included. This is an area to note. We are proposing for paraprofessionals 2 additional kindergarten paraprofessionals. Right now we have 1 regular education paraprofessional, but we like to increase that to a total of 3. We've had that in the past, but it's kind of phased out in terms of places to cut for budgetary reasons. But they do find that having paraprofessionals in the kindergarten classrooms very beneficial to the students. So with the the additional of the 2, it is an increase of $59,357.62. The budget for that one is $90,065.19.
Just a quick question, please. What's the class size for the kindergarten?
That might actually be
Oh,
in
it's
your
on
enrollment.
the, yeah, it's in the back, on the enrollment report tab. It's broken down by grade level.
28.
28.
No, kindergarten, 55.
There's
That's
3
how many
classrooms.
classes, 2?
3.
3.
So 55 students for 3 classes?
And we got the increase in needs that we mentioned, the increase in
Where are the principal and vice principal and,
The school administration, they're in the 2400 function code.
okay,
Yeah, they'll be coming up a little bit later.
okay.
Yep. All right, continuing on, we got the substitute rate. That is one that's always open to discussion because it's hard to predict when someone's gonna be in the building next year if they're out sick, for any reason. We multiply that by roughly 12 sick days plus the 3 personal days that they have at 34 teachers at the cost of a rate for a substitute at $100 a day. So continuing on, we did the same thing for the paraprofessionals. We based it off the 3 paraprofessionals, not just the 1, because we're proposing to add the 2, excuse me. So we want to reflect it properly. Going on, got the health insurance, that reflects. Dental is a 5% increase. That is a flat across the board premium for all plans. There's only 1 plan for the dental, so it's 5%, depending on what plan.
Bless you. Thank you. Excuse me, I'm sorry, for the,
Yeah.
for the substitute para.
Yes, substitute pairs, yeah.
So essentially you've kind of moved that up into the salaries because you wouldn't have to have as many subs, is that what you're saying? Because the budget is only 4,500?
That's, because there's 3 paras, multiply that by 100 times 15 days, it's 4,500.
3 regular education
3 regular
paras.
education paras.
The balance of them are in the special education.
Now, these are not
segment.
special education paras, these are just regular
But
education.
for 23, 24, there was 24,500.
That's under the expenses. So I'd see your question.
Okay.
So that is something that we've been clearing up. What happened in the past is they were just passing in their timesheets for the substitute, and there was no placement for it. We wanted accountability, because there's teacher subs, regular education, and regular education para subs, but there's also special education teacher subs and special education para subs. So we're trying to mitigate that to make it more realistic and what the numbers actually reflect.
I just thought maybe you were moving.
Yep, so if you would take all the subs together and add up the budgets and the expenses, it's reasonable, but it still looks like a lot.
So that 24, which is now 45, is because you shifted paras to other.
We're breaking them out, yep. And when we do the payroll, we're more aware of where they're going, and we're being clear about if there's any questions. We're not assuming one place. We are sending the timesheets back to make sure that they're going to the right place. All right, so health insurance, dental. All right, next page. Got disability. FICA is based off the salaries. Substitute coordinator. You'll see FICA for lunch. Well, I think we skipped over it, but you'll see the lunch monitor recess. This is gonna be the last year that person's there, so next year that line will just go away because it's a carryover for 3 years. And it's also a hard position to fill. So I think we just phased it out. Going down, you'll see a new line for the employee retirement for the sub coordinator. I broke that out because that used to be buried in with the salary for the principal secretaries. So I think, to be transparent with the position, I want it to be shown that they are getting paid as a stipend position, not part of their regular normal salary.
Nice.
All right, unemployment, workers' comp, those are actual numbers, got that from Primex. After your default budget, so that number does reflect in your default budget as well. Longevity for teachers, part of the CBA, got some retirements gonna be happening, so those numbers are, we had some retirements last year, and gonna have some retirements this year, next year, so those numbers are gonna go down. All right, then now one of the bigger cost items is the tuition for Dover and other public high schools. I put an account note there, projecting 104 students at Dover with a tuition rate right now of $19,020.51. That is the current tuition rate since this is a negotiation year. So the difference between those two would be going on a warrant article once the negotiation is finalized. So that's the total of $1,978,341. We have one student at SST, which is the Seacoast School of Technology, and one student at Oyster River. That student at Oyster River pays the Dover tuition. Sorry, we pay the Dover tuition, but they pay the difference of the Oyster River. So we cap it out at the Dover. That's what they pay.
Nice.
That's what we pay, excuse me, but then they pay the difference. All right?
I believe the contract itself goes on the warrant article, not the actual cost. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
We'll look into that. I'll write that down as a note.
We have to pay tuition as one of the schools of record. But the contract itself, you have to vote in.
Right, we want this, in order to have it as a school of record, it needs to be voted on by the legislative body, so we always do that, and it goes to the commissioner for approval as well. So we're close to concluding those negotiations too.
Next line is the Dover, I just said that one. Co-Brown tuition is projecting 147 students there, with the tuition rate of $20,595 per student, totaling $3,027,318. And the line below that is the anticipated move-in one that I mentioned before, as $160,000. That we talked about maybe putting it as a warrant article, maybe splitting it, because it's unanticipated move-ins that hit us hard last year. So we're trying to look forward to see if that's going to happen again. All right, going down the list is supplies for our classes. And then there's also the supply line for the teachers, which is broken out last year, was requested to break that out So that is a line on its own now, so it's not buried with the, not buried, it's not with just general supplies anymore, it's just teacher supplies. Alright, it's more supplies after that, so page 4. Do we have any questions on page 3? I don't wanna go too fast for anybody.
We'll interrupt you if we need to.
Okay, I like that. Alright, continue on, going through more supplies, and then we come up to, as Ms. Levinson noted before, about the classroom textbooks. That is the math program.
What page you on? Sorry, Bill, I got lost.
Oh, yeah, page 4.
Thank you.
Welcome, we're on about 6 down. Classroom textbooks. So you'll see that number is 107,000, compared to 750, which is the balanced budget. This year it is for a new program that is for 6 years. And it roughly totals about $33 per student per year for that math program.
Are there any like grants you could get for this? I mean, everybody's gonna tell me that it's worth it, but that's an outrageous amount of money.
It's the same amount of money approximately that we paid 6 years ago for the program.
No, it's still
This
outrageous.
is 2 programs too. It is expensive. We were,
And then it only lasts for 6 years. I mean, when you say 6 years, as a good thing, I think that's not very much. You know, it's, again, everybody's gonna scream, but math doesn't change that much in 6 years. I mean, addition, subtraction, multiplication, like, I don't know, it seems crazy.
One is still 2?
It still is, believe it
You
or
haven't
not.
tried the new math?
Math expressions and math and focus.
That's scratching my head.
This is our 6-year subscription, and it was 92,000, and now includes algebra. And I think to look at, I agree with you that it's very expensive, but if you look at our test results in math, our students have done very well, and we have other districts in the state reaching out to us, asking us for what's our secret sauce, because our students have done so well in math, and particularly you look by the time they get to 6th grade, and you also look at their results, that our students do outstandingly, particularly look at our Co-Brown results, and our students at Dover, our students do outstandingly well in math. And I know that years prior, that we were a school looking at, back when it was Denny and Cindy results, we were rocking on the edge of students being a district and a school in need of improvement, and that is not the case now.
Right. I
Our
mean,
students do very well in math.
it's partly because of the RTI model that Nottingham was a pilot over a decade ago. But I am a big proponent of this math program, particularly Math and Focus, because I can see the results right away. And you see kids struggling with a lack of structure in the programming that we had before. Multiple different ways of looking at things and memorizing that instead of really getting the concept of math. So to see kids doing better, but I hear your concern. I'm sure you're not saying it's not a good program, you're just saying, what the heck, it costs so much.
It's wild. And then, remind me if I'm wrong, but the subscription is because there's like an online component that we subscribe to, and then that expires, so we have to renew the subscription for it? Is that why we have to? It's not like a textbook that we can buy and keep using. It's,
We do have textbooks.
There's textbooks.
there's textbooks
This
as
is-
well.
Well, it's
Yeah.
workbooks.
It's the workbooks, I
So
think,
they're
they gotta
not
buy
reusable,
every year.
kids actually write in those.
So they're $30
There's new workbooks yearly.
workbooks.
So all there's a consumable piece that you'll see budgeted every year for workbooks. But
That's in
then-
addition to,
This is the
cost of the
upgrade to the newest edition of Math and Focus, and we're on a 6-year cycle for all of our programming. We evaluate it every 6 years and determine if we're gonna use something different, or if we're gonna upgrade to the next level of what we currently have. And this is the negotiated price for Math and Focus and Math Expressions, K-8.
And we did pilot another program this fall, and the teachers were not as happy with it at all, and still chose to go with, the Math Expressions, which is the pre-K to grade 3, and now are still choosing the Math and Focus.
are there any grants or any assistance that could help with curriculum costs?
Any grants that we possibly can, we use them.
Yep.
I know that we've used the grants portion particularly for IXL, for science. Whatever we can use to supplement, we do. And we used, part of our, they'll help me here, our REAP funds to go directly towards the curriculum as well. And we will continue to look for that to offset in any way.
Yeah. Good.
Hey, Sue, just to Michael's point, I mean, 6 years doesn't seem like a short time to me, but I don't know, it seems like a long time, but when you're looking at, kind of like that 6 month and looking at an upgrade to the program, what are like some of the differences that you see that, you know, make it compelling to have to upgrade or to?
So I think that's one question that we're delving into at the board level. So, we're trying to keep the programs fresh. They do offer new additions periodically.
Like what are some of the,
Yeah,
what's fresh?
to his point, that's what we need to know. We
Okay,
need to understand, like, what are the different,
Yeah.
how are they laying it out differently? Is the new addition materially different or not? So.
Yeah. Or is it about, strategies for how?
Not to interrupt, I think we're getting off topic here. That sounds like a detailed question for a school board meeting, not necessarily a budget
But
committee. So I
we
just
can
wanna bring
report
us
out,
back in.
like, what we
Yeah.
learn on that.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. So at the end of that line, that is all of the 1100 function code. You're looking at a proposed budget for there. It's one of the largest pieces of the budget, $9,560,407.99. All right, and the next section is the 1200, that is the special education. And just like with the regular education teachers, special education teachers are part of the CBA. So we've had some track changes and CBA increases. We also removed the preschool coordinator to their own line. They are not in a CBA, but also in transparency, they're in preschool, they're not in the grade level school, so we wanted to break it out, so it's shown and being transparent. But they also get the same rights as all the other teachers, it's just transparency, because it is a different kind of teaching style and grade level. Moving on, there is you'll see a line there that says 0 that had expenses previously. That's the salary for the special education secretary. That has been moved to the 2100 function code. We moved that last year, so you'll note that a little bit later as well. For budgetary change in the budget. Preschool coordinator, as I mentioned, now that's their account line there on top of page 5. Did the same thing with the preschool aide. That is the paraprofessional, we took them out as well. Oh, I think I skipped over one of the bigger pieces. Let me just go back real quick. So the very bottom of page 4 is the special education paras. There are 22 special education paras, and so I wanted to make note of that. So there's a question of how many paraprofessionals we have. We have 22 special education paras right now. I should say 22 positions.
Does
many of those are-
include the kindergarten?
Kindergarten's in the regular education.
Okay, those are regular,
Yep.
okay.
How many of those are filled?
Right now, we're gonna have 2 vacancies for the special education paras.
In kindergarten, there's only one regular,
Right now, yeah.
if that's your question.
Yeah.
And it's filled.
No, I wasn't talking about the kindergarten. I'm just curious, out of the 22, how many are filled and how frequently is that completely filled?
We have 21 filled, but one person just gave a 2-week notice, so we will have 2 openings.
And that one's been filled for quite some time.
What do you mean
there-
filled? It's been empty for some time, you're saying?
One's been empty.
One's been
one.
empty for a while, right? Yep, okay.
Are there other paras besides special ed paras?
Kindergarten, regular education ones.
Okay,
And then there's a library aide,
okay,
so that would be, now it's in the 22 function code.
okay.
All right, did the same math for subs, for special education as paras I mentioned. Continuing on down, health insurance is part of the CBA, we can't do anything with that. Dental as well, so that's pretty much, ESY, the extended school year, that's just level funded, no changes there. All right. On page 6. Going through disability insurances, FICA. As I mentioned before, we moved that special education admin assistant out. You'll see that later on. Teacher retirement. That's it really for that line, that page. Not much there. It all reflects part of the salaries. Now if we go to page 7, we got some new expenses there. Somewhere just about the middle. The contracted services high school and the special education para public high school. We got some needs that are going to be identified going into high school next year, so we're being proactive. Those students have been identified, and we are required to provide them the services that we can. Right now, we're using for this special education Dover High School, that we're using the current tuition model for the tier 1 and tier 2. So right now we have 8 students at tier 1 at $490 a student and 6 students on tier 2 at $5,000 a student, which makes up that number $33,920. Then we're going down, we've got the 15 identified students for the tuition at Co-Brown for next year. So you'll see that's $106,710. That's actually a little bit down. I had a talk with the student services director. That number, the tuition rate is a smaller tuition rate than it was difference between last year. So I think it was last year was like 7,500 something. This year it's 7,100. So it's nice, and the number of students have changed too. So that helps. There is no need for out-of-district elementary this year, so you'll see a big difference of minus $113,000 there. Keep going down, out-of-district high school, same scenario as all the other students, but that number is down as well. And then we're going to special education classroom supplies, software. A lot of those have been either level funded or just a slight increase. And then just some of the supplies that they're requesting is just more of a replenishment year for that. All right, and top of page 8. So if we go to the second line, which is dues and fees, Medicaid administration costs, right now we've had $4,000 in the last 3 years and nothing's been spent. That is our MSB company that we work with. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. So the total for the 1200 function code. So dues and fees is $12.99. So the 1200 function code is $2,541,319.56. So overall, for the 1200 function code, it is down $28,000 compared to last year. All right, now back to what I was saying about the MSB, our contracted service for the Medicaid. There is some legislation going on for Medicaid and special education students, so it's kind of slowing down some of the items that we're working with, but they've helped us out a lot in regards of auditing. But they haven't charged us, they haven't billed us. But once everything gets up and running, special education lands on its feet, I'm going to see more of an increase in the revenue. So you're going to start seeing some costs there. So we're just kind of anticipating when it's going to happen. All right, continuing on. Now we're at the 1400 function code. That's like the extracurriculars, if you will. Those are all basically CBA driven. And they're pretty level funded, except for dues and fees. We just put a penny there. Let's see what else.
John Decker would be very happy.
Yes.
Yes, I know you would.
Penny, not a
I
dollar.
remember. I thought of him when I did that.
He left his mark.
Yeah, he did.
Looked its own.
All right, so page 9. Just keep going down for the 1400s. It's that one for the 1420s. Let's get 1410. I did. Where is that? Total for 14. Oh yeah, 1410. The co-curricular salaries. It's down $82 overall for a proposed budget of $25,376.02. Right now, the 1420 is the athletic part. So if we keep going down, that's pretty much level funded. Supplies would be the only thing that's really changed, and replacement of other equipment, which I consider that part of supplies as well. That is also changed. There was a little bit increase of replacement equipment. But overall, that is also down $1,463. So for a budget total of $44,070.35 for the athletics, the 1420. Excuse me. So now if we move on to the 1430s, those are the summer schools. There is just a little bit change with the retirement because those numbers have changed. But other than that, there's not really any.
Health insurance?
So are those
Excuse me.
completely different teachers, or are they teachers who teach in the full year as well?
For which ones?
For the
Summer program?
The summer academies? Yeah, those would be the teachers that we have at our district. So
So-
it's outside of the CBA,
What's that?
Summer Institute is different teachers.
but there's summer academy.
She said Summer
Oh,
Institute.
you said summer.
So, okay, so line, fourteen thirty, you've got teacher retirement summer, right? Okay, so is that a teacher who teaches the rest of the year, or somebody who's just, because, well, I'm just trying to understand why you've
Sure.
got that retirement line broken out.
Sure, so what it is there's a .01 and .00. The .01 is for summer academies, sorry, .01 is for the summer academies, .00 is for summer institute.
Summer Institute is Rose. Rose
Yeah, I
Bosley.
understand, but why is retirement broken out for that?
Yeah, why would,
Because some institute people are retired teachers, so we don't pay retirement.
Well, no, I have it in here as retirement, which is an error on my part.
Oh.
There should be no retirement for the summer institute.
Okay.
Okay,
I figured that's where you're going, but I wanted to make sure.
right,
Let me
it's
make a
not
note
an
here.
employee.
well, I was trying to
Already
figure out
paid
if
all
it's
that
one
retirement.
individual and you're trying to break out their retirement based
Yeah.
on what they do the full calendar year versus summer.
That's
so-
what I thought too.
Yeah,
No.
Because, my neighbor's a teacher, they do that in summer school.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
assumed.
This is why it's a draft, this is nice.
Good catch.
Yeah, and also the description there too, doesn't really help. I think in the past they were combined as well, but last year I think we broke out summer institute and summer academy, so you can see them separately.
I see on page 10, the health insurance for guidance is at 27.95% increase.
That's because the cost of health insurance went up.
Well, also remember
Aren't they under the teachers?
yeah, they're under teachers.
So is the teachers at 27%?
Well, remember we are assuming that if the district was to pay 100% of the insurance rates right now.
There's a high assumption in here right now until it can be properly vetted out. So the assumption is that we're paying 100% of the top plan, right?
Yeah, for the plan that they're currently on.
Yeah, so you looked at the plan that they're currently in and paying 100%, which the CBA doesn't call for in most cases.
No, we have to negotiate it because how the CBA is written based on the current plans. One of the plans changed, went away altogether, which affects both plans total. So I didn't know where they're gonna lie. It's easier to take out than it is to add in, so we just assumed 100% off the bat.
That's like worst case scenario.
Worst
So
case.
there's gonna be upside there.
Exactly, worst case scenario.
Won't be able to.
Yep.
See, yeah, because on page 1, it says health insurance, teachers 17%.32. So it's worst case too, for the teachers?
Yes.
I'm just curious, why is it
Because they're
different?
looking at the policies that they're on.
They're different okay, that's what
Yeah,
I'm getting
each
at.
person, they're on a different policy, but they're also on a different plan. Could be
Okay.
single, could be two-person, could be a family plan, and then there's two different
Oh,
types of
okay, this
plans.
is just average, assuming they took the same plan, you're basing it on.
Yeah, the
Alright.
plan that they currently are on.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, so I'm going through guidance, it's just all CBA related. FICA supplies is all level funded, enrichment guidance. There was just an error last year, they wanted to actually request $250, but that two never got in, so it was just $50, so that's why you see a $200 increase. But it's pretty much level from the previous year, ideally. Software guidance, 0, and dues and fees, went down a little bit. So total for guidance would be $270,363.60. That's at the very bottom of page 10. Alright, the next page is nurse. The nursing is also part of our CBA. As we talked about before, they're gonna assume the insurance as well that they currently are on. Retirement repairs is all pretty much level funded. The only other area that we have on a watch list at the school board level is the supply line, which is the third from the bottom. And you might ask yourself, why does health supply have nothing and why is there supplies for nursing? It's the same thing, it's just the object code changed. 5600 is the object code for all of it, but it qualifies for 610, which is for specific supplies, so it's just an account number change, even though they're the same thing. So after this budget season, that would fall off and you won't see that one anymore. So the nurse total is $132,286.96. Alright, top of page 12. Excuse me. Contracted services, got some numbers in there. Let's see, ESL, school psych, behavior tech, dues and fees for elementary. And 2140 total is $99,753.77. All right, next line is the speech. There's 2 speech language positions.
Go back to ESL, is that
ESL, yes.
just, it jumps up and down, is that based on need?
It's based on who's in the, yes.
Is that one I'll consider?
That's at the very, very top.
So the need has significantly increased?
Yes, it depends on the students who come into our district. Okay.
Yep.
Next line would be, we're going into the speech section, the 2150s. They are also part of the CBA. We have 2 speech language positions. Going down, we're just assuming if they're on the same plan. We actually, I believe we have a open position at the moment. So we assume that they're gonna be a family plan. For any time somebody moves into, not moves in, but somebody who's a vacant position, we assume that they're gonna be on a family plan. So we'll keep going. On top of page 13 is also part of speech. That speech elementary and speech high school, those are ones that go to either charter schools, or they go to outside of the district, but the district has to pay for it. So that's why those 2 lines are by themselves at the top. That's kind of new for this year, but we want to be transparent. So total speech line is $262,558.76. Next section is the OT, part of the CBA. Not much has really changed there in terms of retirement or health. They follow same with everybody else. We have contracted physical therapy. It's actually a little bit down, which is great. And the total for that area is $124,103.07. Page 14. All right, at the very top there, you'll see 2169, which is the charter school services. That is something new that we are trying to be more transparent with, considering charter schools, because charter schools are considered public schools, but you have to identify it a little differently. So they're kind of being broken out into their own line. Before, they used to be part of the services that you saw with the other 2 lines, the high school or elementary. That total is $17,540.64.
So wait, can you explain that, charter school services, so that's for students who are going to a charter school but
It's
require?
this district's responsibility to provide those. Yep.
Yep. So just before, they were just mixed in with the elementary or the services or the high school services.
So our student service director or her designee, they have to show up for those meetings, they have to provide those services, the community pays for it.
All right, the next one is 2170. That is the salary for the, sorry, not salary, but that's the section for the special education admin assistant. That was originally in the 1200s, that we moved to the 2100s for the budget as of last year. We are assuming they are not in SCBA, so they are assumed up to 3% increase in salary. And then everything just follows through regarding the insurance and the FICA retirement. The total for that position is $84,154.03. All right, page 15. Now I believe there might be some questions on what is summer staff curriculum stipends. That is the position of $21,200 is where the teachers, correct me if I'm wrong, can kind of work on during the summer as a collaborative. They have to be in the school. They work with other teachers to work on programs for the coming school year. They write a proposal, and if it gets approved, they come in to get a stipend for it. So it's a stipend because it's outside of their CBA. so it has to be broken out differently. And since they're not working directly with students at this time, that's why it's in the 2200 function codes. Nothing really noted there, it's pretty much level funded. Vector stipends, I believe it was missed in the budget last year, so I wanted to make sure, and it wasn't missed, it was just built in with the summer staff curriculum, but since it's a different position, I wanted to break it out so you can see it separately.
What is that?
The Vector stipends, Vector is a professional development software, so we have a teacher that helps and approves it, and we have a paraprofessional that helps and approves it for paras, so they get a stipend for it.
The stipends are in the CBA, and they're the touch points for each of their collective groups on PD.
Yep.
All right,
If we only spent 2,500, why do we still need 5,500?
well, it's for two people. The reason for that is one person, I think, got paid into a different account line, and we didn't catch it until after the audit was done. So I can't really change it now, because I don't want to change the numbers anywhere. All right, total for the improvement of instruction, $81,648.15. All right, page 16. Curriculum director, they are not part of the CBA, but I do want to note that for the curriculum director and the student service director, they have to be certified. Since they are certified by New Hampshire, they actually qualify for the teacher retirement rate, not the employee retirement rate. So it's just assuming a 3% increase. Everything should pretty much follow suit with that. Dues and fees is just making sure that they are on the, I think it's NHSAA and another membership. And NHSAA does it by what their salary would be multiplied by 5%. That's the cost for the membership. It's an increase from last year. Last year it used to be 3%, but this is the first time they've raised it in quite a few years. The total for the instruction curriculum development is $159,651.62. Next section is the librarian. Librarian.
Dues and fees?
Dues and fees, yes.
What are we doozing and feesing?
It's the membership costs. For the
Not that much?
Yeah, because the NHSAA goes by the salary multiplied by 5%.
Not by like the services provided.
Nope, you pay a flat, you pay the flat fee.
Yep.
That's a good business model, huh?
Right.
Salary times percentage.
5%. 5% is new this year. Last year was 3%. Now it's 5%. All right, next section is librarian. Librarians are part of the CBA. They're with the teachers. And also the library aide, which is the last paraprofessional, as well, is part of the CBA also.
So am I seeing that the salary of the librarian went up?
Yes,
17%?
she is doing a track change, but also part of her track change, I believe it's also a new degree for her. So part of the CBA, it seems like a significant jump, and it's actual. I checked it out this morning.
Significant.
It was questioned yesterday, but it is correct.
What did we, I'm sorry, I was highlighting
Sure,
something
we're
else.
talking about the salary for the librarian.
Oh, okay.
$10,000 almost.
Nope,
She's getting her master's.
I think that might be what it is.
She had some additional changes, not just so she had track and step.
Yep, she did a lot of it in.
Oh, yeah, see the steps.
Yep. I forgot about step. Thank you.
Yep, step raises.
And she's not at top tier, so she changes every year. I got rid of, well, I did not budget anything for the librarian substitute wage. The library aide is in there when the librarian is out, and if they need somebody, they'll most likely use it out of the regular education one. Since it's such a small amount and it's just one individual, it's easier to track. And it hasn't been used. I looked into that. The last 4 years, there was a $0 expense to it. There's no need for it to be there, I don't believe. Apparently I missed the notes for the health insurance. No, I didn't miss, sorry, library aid. let's go down, so from the meeting from yesterday to today, we did change some of the library costs. It went down. We had some questions on what the equipment would be, and that would be on page 18. When I say equipment, I mean like software. And then library books and reference books and replacement equipment. So the total for the library, including the librarian supplies and also the library aid, is $169,214.63. Next section is technology. Right now, we are using a placeholder number for the technology director. We're gonna be having an open position there. We don't know who we're gonna get. So that's competitive too with other people in the state for the size of our school district. The webmaster stipend is something also on our watch list as well. It's been there for a couple of years. Before that was built into the 2,100 stipends, but it's not part of the CBA, so we moved it out to technology. That would be the $3,000 stipend, if anybody was wondering. And then we just.
That's not something you think, I mean, not to tell you how to do your business, but it's something you could wrap into the technology director role.
That's why it's on our watch list. We're kind of looking at it, yep.
Can I go back to the top there, library books, there's a 30% increase?
Yep.
Are they replacing more books, or is cost gone up, or what's the driver behind that?
Sure, let me see if I can find the notes from here.
Pretty
I think
significant
that's
jump.
something that we were definitely looking at as well,
Yeah,
because
it was questioned yesterday.
it's
Cool.
kind of standing out there as an outlier.
Thank you.
Right, technology, they're not part of the CBA for the technology director, so they would be at the employee rate. So we're now on page 19. Right now, the webmaster position is, the person who does it is a teacher, so they get the teacher retirement. We're going down, got some replacement equipment. This is where we were talking about the computers for the staff members, if they should be computers or PCs. That is an open item that we are exploring to make sure we get a more appropriate number.
What item is that?
Yeah, that would be under,
New equipment tech?
I think it's actually tech equipment, replacement equipment,
Okay.
because they already have a computer, so they just be replacing it, so. Excuse me.
It looks like new equipment slash tech is relatively new line?
That would be, because that is, I believe, is a cycle, well, actually, you know what, I don't wanna get my numbers mixed up, let me get that for you.
AV equipment and the phones.
Yeah, we have that AV equipment because the sound system at the school is not the greatest. We also want to make sure that we are broadcasting instead of hiring out for a deliberative session and also school board meetings. We want to make sure that we are, not interfering with anybody's ability to participate in school functions or seeing or hearing anything regarding the school.
It's also, I think, the concerts and things for the kids, because they're trying to carry those and they're not showing. So we've had over the years a lot of iterations of trying to get things so that we can communicate better and people can see what's happening, and we'd like to kind of close on it and get it fixed.
I thought it was very expensive to sub that out, I thought.
It is, the deliberative session. Okay.
Yeah, it was
I know we
very
went back and
expensive.
forth on this a few times, trying to keep
To
it.
buy it.
How many mics do you need, but it's about $8,000, $10,000.
Depends on the year.
Yep.
And we're kind of hoping maybe the new tech person that we can get has some experience with that as well.
That would be great.
I do.
These kids are good with tech.
Get a 14-year-old. Ask
Oh,
one of my
I'm trying to
sons.
just put down my screen, they're laughing at me, no, Dad, like this. And I'm like, what?
All right, so the total for the computer assisted instruction, that's $259,374.10. All right, next section is the 2300s, and it's like school board, superintendent office, but not the business office. I want to make note that is different because the business office this is the first full year we've been a business office. That's the 2500 function code. So you'll see some numbers here that, oh, why is this person not there? No, they're still there. They're just on a different function code now.
FICA for school board? FICA for school board?
You get the stipend.
No, I think, because why is it different? Is that what you're asking?
No, they shouldn't pay FICA.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got the stipend is the first line salary school board, right? Then you've got the moderator, and then what's FICA school board?
That's the,
There should be no FICA for
Yeah, that's my point.
it's a stipend, it's not like a,
Why is there retirement related to the school board?
No, it's,
FICA's not retirement,
Oh, I'm sorry, why is there FICA related?
because they get taxed on it.
Yeah. Yep.
So Social Security, Medicare tax.
But you don't have.
well, I haven't had one. If I had one, I could tell you.
Yeah, well, we never,
I'm not sure, I don't remember the last time.
but it.
No, we didn't, no,
Why is
FICA's
there,
not taken
why
out.
is there tax shown then?
The stipend's usually 1099.
Yeah, but the way school boards that I've done my previous experience, they've also been taxed too. I can look at that, nobody's ever asked me that question, so
They've
this is
always
new.
taken it out of us over every,
They take the tax out?
Yep.
Really?
yeah, and then I get a W-2 every year.
Yeah, but, I mean, we'd still get one, but it would just be the same amount that you got.
Yeah, you just pay it out of pocket instead of out of your paycheck.
It's interesting.
I can look into that for you if you want, I've never been asked that question.
I would look
I
into it
think you should
because,
look
Kinda
into it
making
for
me-
your
I'm
school
curious
boards,
now.
so we stop paying FICA if they don't need to.
Save a little bit of money.
Might as well.
Okay. All right, so if we go to page 20.
Why did the computer repair maintenance thing go up? Your actual spent was less than budget, and,
where are you, Sandra?
why, I'm on,
Page 19.
1225, on page 19, a computer repair and maintenance. It's weird that it went up with that. Why did you need to spend $1,000 more if you didn't even spend that much?
Because I think we've been looking at the trend, how the computers have been going at the school this year, and there's been more accidents.
Yeah, kids with the computers, break the screens or whatever.
Everything is going up, so we might as well be prepared for it?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
It's prepared, yep.
Okay.
Something of note too, this year was the first year, with insurance for Chromebooks.
True.
I don't think that there was the enrollment we were looking for. I think there was a little glitch in that, so I think enrollment hopefully would go up next year.
Which
So
would bring it
hopefully
down.
that would go down, I would imagine.
So who pays the insurance?
Parents.
They do?
Yep.
They have the option.
Parents pay the repair?
So you actually get a breakdown of estimated costs of a screen, charger, so you can see for yourself, ooh, is it worth the $5 a month, or am I gonna trust Johnny to not lose this charger?
So to Michael's point, our parents, if they don't have the insurance, do they pay for that?
Yeah, if we lose a
Yeah, I don't
charger,
think
we
you
pay
can
for it.
graduate if you have a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you have to pay for the charger.
No, you can't do that anymore.
So if they break the screen, then the parents have to pay for the broken screen?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, we've actually started doing the repairs in-house before it used to be farmed out, and it's been saving us a lot of money,
That's great.
so, which is nice.
Is it a class? Did the kids do it?
That was actually a real question that someone had asked, like, part of
I don't know why you
Club,
wouldn't do it.
but it's like, is it considered labor or not labor, so we're gonna stay away from that.
Say labor-ish.
Labor adjacent.
It's a learning opportunity. It's hands-on learning.
CTC program, high school.
So, any other questions on tech?
Yeah, you should do an HVAC program.
Not with that school. They're studying what not to do. They'd be the
That's
perfect
too
size.
soon.
Too soon?
This one hurts. All right, okay, back to the budget. School board secretary, we did increase the cost for the school board district clerk. We kind of took into account of how much work that's actually been done, and we thought fairness, it's more than it's a little bit anticipated, so we raised that up a little bit.
We've been trying to get a school district clerk, we've been advertising for it since March, and we don't have any takers, and we really need to get somebody before February, so if you know anyone,
Or if any of you are interested.
yeah.
The
Just
school
need an
board
intro.
dues
Hey, now, I
and
guess.
fees.
Yeah, school board dues and fees.
Yeah.
We belong to the New Hampshire School Boards
Moderator also went up
Association.
Considerably. Why was that?
Moderator is, the elected position for the school district.
it's the salary school district moderator, was 200 in, 24, and it's 700 now. What does this person do other than moderate the school district SB meeting?
The deliberative session. The school district moderator is usually at all of the elections, and they do go through and moderate everything at the deliberative as well.
And we had an additional session for the adequacy as well.
Since
That
it's
just
an
seems like
elected
a
position,
jump, but it's not a whole lot of money.
since it's
considering
an
the
elected
budget,
position, you
but
don't have
it
control
seemed
over
like a
that.
jump.
Pay, do you? For an elected position, do you have control over the compensation for that? Or is that part of the?
The board can set those.
Yeah, it's not specified.
Yeah.
Only $700.
I mean,
Good job.
I mean, in fairness to them too, it's like, you say they moderate the deliberative session, but there's so much more time that they put into understanding the laws and all of that.
There's prep work behind it.
Yeah.
All the training, and,
Yes.
I mean, our school district moderator definitely
Yeah.
invests a lot of
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Okay, Karen, did your question get answered?
No. The dues and fees for the school board, what are those? Because that went up 30%.
Yep, it's,
As long as the New Hampshire School Boards Association.
yep, that is also a membership increase. They also went to 5% for the NHSBA. There's policy subscription, so that way if we have to research any kind of policies or updates in policies, that's part of that as well. And then there's the webinar subscription, which is $75 per member.
Is that kind of the school equivalent of the
NHMA, but it's
Yeah.
more expensive.
But more expensive.
Aren't they, I think they're probably about the same.
That's where they hear all the policy laws, so as legislation comes through, they give us all the recommendations for the laws and say, here's the latest legislation, here's recommendations for your policy, which is very important, because that guides me.
Yeah.
What they adopt tells me what I'm supposed to do and not do.
Yeah.
Which is good.
The other thing is we can get some legal advice from time to time. So if it's something simple and we don't want to have to go into the law firm for it, we can get some
Yes.
advice from them.
Okay, thank you.
And training for new school board members.
So, total for the school board services, that's object code 2310, is $45,183.91. And now, as we talked about somewhat before, the school board secretary and the clerk, that's 2312 function code. The total for that is $3,121.85. Now we go into the treasurer. Nothing has changed there. It's been level funded. That total is $21,053.
20, what?
The district treasurer, 2313.
2,000.
What'd I say?
Not 21,000. I said
I'm tired. That's not good. Sorry,
You're gonna run for treasurer.
$2,153. Sorry about that, I misspoke. Next line is advertising legal notices. You'll see that right below there is, that number, that account number just changed because it was identified wrong for the object code. But if you see it on the next page, a little shortly down, you'll see advertising legal notices there. That is the proper account line. It was the function code that needed to be changed, not the account number, object code. So we have election services total, nothing, because that's gonna go away. So audit services total, that's just an increase in their cost of doing business. That's just, inflation and whatnot.
Is that an estimate? 'Cause
Right
we
now,
haven't
this
seen
is an estimate, but she did say that it was gonna go up, but we don't know by how much. And we won't get that until, I'm hoping maybe we get a letter of engagement before the vote, so we can update this correctly. But $23,000 is probably a safe number, because as you can see, we spent $23,750 last year. That was also a little different, because we're also catching up from previous years, so that's kind of like an outlier as well. So this is also a question that came up yesterday, is the GSB, the GASB 75 compliance. GASB 75 is an actual evaluation that needs to be done every 2 years. We just did it last year, so we don't have to do it this year. So next year, you'll see it there again. So total audit services is $23,000. I said that right? All right. Next is legal services. Like, as was mentioned before, it is a negotiation year next year. We got the transportation as well, and maybe Co-Brown, so we are assuming 30,000 again. And the advertising legal notices that I mentioned before for legal services totaling $31,000. Next line is the superintendent. It's assuming a 3% increase, pretty much across the board. Also, the admin assistant for the SAU is there as well. So assuming the 3% increase, up to a 3% increase, because they are not in the CBA. So everything kind of just ties to the salaries and whatnot. Just following along here. And then if you go down to page 23, you'll see where it says, I must have missed it in the beginning, but you'll see the FICA for business administrator. Business administrator got moved to 2,500, and the bookkeeper also got moved to 2,500, because those are the fiscal services, or the business office, if you will. So you'll see that next year, that number won't be there anymore. That account line, I should say. Director of Student Services is there as well. They're not in the CBA, so it's up to a 3% increase, but you'll notice that, as I mentioned before, they are at a teacher contribution rate because of the certification that they have through the state. Then we level funded, IT services, professional cleaning services, SAU electric. We did increase the postage a little bit because of the cost of postage going up. I'm hoping to take advantage of more emailing and scanning, but you can't do business like that with the IRS or feds or something like that. Sometimes you have to send it in the mail, and it's usually thick packets. Advertising went up a little bit just because we're expecting more information to be put out there. If we've got any RFPs that we need to write, that will hit that account line as well. Travel went down a little bit. The office supplies looks like it went up, but that should be pretty much level funded going forward, roughly, just to make sure that the office has the proper amount of supplies, but also it includes the budget books that you're holding here as well. So we want to make sure those are costs that are not against any kind of doing business, but we make sure that we have everything that we need. District software, that is the Tyler accounting software that we have. It's a very good, valuable software. I actually have a meeting with them on Friday to go over the modules that we have, so hopefully I can get more of a realistic number, and that number would go down, because we might be paying for stuff that we don't use. But that we'll find out on Friday. I'm sorry, not Friday, next Wednesday.
So the overall SAU expenses, 26 budgeted is 559. But last year's unaudited is 627. So where's roughly the 70,000 reduction coming from?
Let's find out. Not that one.
I was looking for something that
It's kind of large that sticks out.
Do you think it's
correlated
because you
to that,
pulled
I
the
don't see
business
anything.
function out?
Oh, you know what? It might have been, yes, I think that's right. I think it's because we pulled out the business
Oh,
office.
off, yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going into the next function, which is the 2400, which is the principal, school administration, the assistant principal, secretary. Principals are not in the CBA, so they're up to a 3% increase for salary, but they are a certified position, so they get the teacher retirement rate. Not much is really different there. The only health plans that you'll see an increase there because of the plans that they're on and the increase that we have. One thing I do want to make note of is the assistant principal, which is actually the dean of students. Right now is gets a retirement rate for employees, but she should be finished her degree program either by the end of this year or at the start of next year. And when she gets certified, she'll be qualified to get the teacher retirement rate. So that's why certification, excuse me, certification. So that way you'll see, that's why you see two lines, one dean of students, and then, which doesn't have a budget, but some expenses, but then you'll see the assistant principal line, which has a budget, but no expenses. It's just, they're interchangeable in that case.
Question, who's the student services director? That's different than the principal and assistant principal? What is this? student-
Special education director?
Okay.
There's no buyouts, are there, healthcare buyouts?
Sorry, say again.
Healthcare buyouts? Is there any healthcare buyouts?
Yes, we moved them last year into the health insurance lines. When you get the breakdown for the employee health benefits, you'll see how many are health stipends or health insurance buyouts, and you'll see not who, but the plans for the health insurance.
Bill, I had a question. I don't think we didn't catch that last night. In your note, you have 2 school secretaries using up to a 3%, but the math is at 2.8 on page 24.
Page what?
24.
Oh, on 2410.5, 10.04.
Oh, I think that's because we took out the stipend for the substitute coordinator. Because last year it was in there, broke it out for this year.
It was included in the salary.
It was included in the salary line. So that, if you add that back and add like 3,500 to it, you'll probably get to 3% there.
Thank you.
When it says up to 3%, that's not like a mandated 3%, that's just a number that we picked.
Based on evaluation.
Those up to 3% are not CBA driven. They're not, anybody who has that is not a CBA. All right, I'm on I'll be on page 26. All right, stuff follows through.
See, the background checks went up,
Yes.
people?
Yes, so we also pay for volunteers, but we're making sure, we're doing a big initiative, anybody who's in the building who has direct contact with students has to have a background check. They have to be fingerprinted, we have to have a background check. So if a parent goes on a field trip, if they're not already in the system, we want them to be fingerprinted. We gotta make sure that if they're going with students, going to the bathroom, if they're going with students on a trip, it doesn't matter, we just wanna make sure that everybody's safe.
And how often do you do background checks? Because I know the head issues at different school next town over.
It's per our policy,
Per
and
policy.
and we're enforcing our policy, which hadn't,
Is it once a year? Like
Yeah,
every
what
year?
is it?
it doesn't say once a year, it just said they had to have it, and once it,
Once
We
you
do
get
it
it.
once when the first time that they are employed or start.
And that's it?
employees, it's once,
So,
and then, volunteers, it's once, and we haven't had it as annual, but we just had people who would volunteer, just come to volunteer, and they hadn't been checked. So when I got here, I went through the policies, the board had updated the policies, et cetera. So we are going through and saying, if you wanna go on a field trip, you want a chaperone, et cetera, you need to get records checked.
But that's once a year, though. Do you think that's adequate?
At this point, that's what our policy says, you need to be fingerprinted, and it does not say more than once a year.
so-
It just
That's what
says
sports
It's just
is.
once,
I'm
it's
saying.
just once.
So
It's
that's
once a
what-
lifetime, I mean, I don't know.
I think that's a question for the school board. I understand your
Policy
question.
review.
It's just
But right
policy.
now, we
Absolutely.
try to get the policy, enact a policy. Get it current.
At least to start doing background checks.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I get them every year, you know, 9/11 happened, they don't mess around anymore.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
It's every year.
They're just budgeting to the
TSA,
policy.
Customs, state police, every year. And 10-year FBI background check. They don't mess around.
What's
Just
next
don't know
on the
why it's
budget?
once, and that's it.
What's next on the budget?
So we keep going down, got professional development principal. Postage, you know, we assume the postage is gonna be a little higher there. They didn't use much last year, but that's because their postage machine was down,
Hey,
so.
got an idea.
Michael, did you do that?
It was Tom.
Yeah, but I think it was assumed, it wasn't broken out.
Tom's running around like pulling
So you
plugs.
have to ignore that or not.
Plug the telephones in the
Yeah. It might have gone under supplies for stamps, stuff like that.
And they use the SAUs from time to time as well.
All right, scratch that plan.
Alright, page 27. So you'll see one item there, it says main office replacement equipment. That is a watch list item, and I'd bring it up here, I think that's where we had, the carpet in the front office is original to the school. Oops.
I think you can clean it enough.
So that's one of the big drivers there. The other one is also a laminator and the maintenance agreement for the laminator. They replaced the cord and it's working right now, but the question is for how long. So,
We're also thinking about the layout of that office space, so that's why we're considering the timing of the flooring.
for the principal's office, total for that line, 2410s is $439,801.09. All right, next is the business office line. That's the 2500 function code. That's where you'll see the BA, also the bookkeeper as well. Business consultant is, we have someone else that also comes in and helps at the end of the year, making sure our books are in order. So it's a second set of eyes. I actually really enjoyed it. At first I was kind of hesitant towards it, but it's also puts me at peace of mind to make sure that we are doing everything right and that we are, going on a path to success. So, and if we don't use it, we don't use them, but he's been very valuable.
He's helped throughout the year, he's done reconciliations, he's done cash recons, he worked with the SAU 44 reconciling that, he's done grant work, he's done the DOE.
DOE 25, yeah.
DOE 25, so a lot of things. It's a CPA.
So that's just, for services for the business office. That's a total of $18,345.04. The business office supplies is just, we up the supply line because we want to make sure that we have everything. You go through a lot of paper. There is also a lot of.
These budget books and dividers.
No, that's in the other line. Yeah, that's not in this one.
Sorry.
No, we recycled those last year. I remember giving mine back.
Most people do.
Yeah, various office supplies for the business office as well, and that does overlap a little bit with the SAU office. For envelopes, ink for the printers, that's the bigger one, is ink for the printers. That can be costly. Paper, we got checks that we have to do for our accounts payables. We don't do ACH. We mail checks. It's a lot safer than actually doing ACHs. So we have to make sure we get enough checks for everybody. That can be a little costly too. So, excuse me. You see that they're for salary for the bookkeeper, they're not on CBA, so they're up to the 3%. FICA with that. So the total for the bookkeeper is $40,360.14. You'll see that those numbers are down. It's because we have a new bookkeeper, and their base pay is different than the previous bookkeeper. Next section is 2510s, business administrator. I am not part of the CBA, so it is up to a 3%. Not certified position, so it is the employee retirement rate. When I say certified, the certification behind it is not required by the state. Not anymore. It used to be, but they got rid of that 2 years ago. So within conference professionals, that's all level funded. The total there is $148,729.80. All right. Next section is facilities maintenance operating plan. That's the 2600 function code. That's the top of page 29. I got facilities director, custodians and the facility director are not part of the CBA, so they're up to the 3%. You'll see in here too is I broke out the salary for the custodian night lead position, so stipend position. So that used to be buried with the salary, but I broke that out as well. So you'll see that different. That's new for this year.
Wait, so what is that for? What is the stipend piece of it?
The night lead custodian stipend, it's like a lead position. So if anybody has questions that they have to go to, if there's anybody new, if we have to hire anybody new, they help train. They're responsible for the nighttime, making sure everything's locked up, everything's secure. I'm going through health insurance, dental, everything, just like everybody else is. We do have custodian subs if we ever have to call anybody in, or if the custodians have to work longer than 40 hours, if they have a big mass, or if they got a big activity that happens in the school and they have to stay later, or they have to work outside of hours to help clean it up.
For an election.
Yep,
So wait, just so I can understand this. So
Sure.
there's a custodian director,
maintenance, yep,
a custodian lead.
yes. That's a stipend position, that's a stipend position. That's the 3,000.
So the person's not a regular custodian?
They are, but the stipend is just broken out. We have 3 custodians and that maintenance director, so 4 people in the 2600 function code.
And one of the 3 is the nighttime lead?
Yes.
Well, there's the day custodian and there's 3 at night, so there's 4 custodians total.
Okay,
There's a lead at night.
okay. Got it.
Somehow, lost the pages.
How's 30 sound? I got a
30
question-
sounds great.
Good, because I got a question for you on that one.
Okay, what's up?
Repairs and building maintenance,
Yes.
looking at 92,000, is that gonna be enough?
There's multiple lines there.
Yeah, some of them are overlapping. Also, they're one of the bigger ones too
I
is,
see 3925,
yep,
okay.
And we're looking for more detail on that. So we know that those are anticipated costs. We want to kind of look at what the priorities are, and we're looking for some feedback from Palmer and Sicard and some other contracted vendors that are working at the school.
yeah, she mentioned the phase project for the Palmer Sicard coming in and doing stuff. So right now we're in phase 1. Hopefully soon we'll get some more results and then we can know what we have to do to bring us up to speed.
Looking at, electricity,
Yes.
Yeah, that's
looks
what
like
I
we're
was
about
looking at.
40K over, might be worth just looking at usage and get a more realistic number, maybe where that's gonna fall in the 120.
Absolutely. Electricity.
Maybe it's a good number for a reason, I don't know, it just seems high.
No, especially since last year, it looks like we paid 79,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, absolutely.
There was a big fear that electricity was gonna jump like crazy, and it did a little bit, but it's come back down to earth
Right.
pretty quickly, so that might be
No, I think that's a great question. I'll definitely look into that.
hanging on.
All right, page 31. I have a meeting with the propane company. It is we got on 2-year contracts with them. We're at the end of our second year contract, and I'm gonna be talking with them next week to see what our rates would be. So right now, it's a placeholder number, the 62,400. Hopefully we can get a good deal and maybe make that number lower.
That's the 2-year contract? So that contract, when does that contract end?
It ends June 30th.
June, okay.
Ed Santa,
We had a good,
really good rate, really good rate. Going on replacement equipment, this year that number is higher because they want to get a new machine for, I think it's floor scrubber. Put in the budget. So the total for the operation and maintenance of plant is $796,592.80. I just do want to make note that we are aware of the situations that are going on in the building, so these numbers are probably going to change a little bit between now and then. When we get more realistic information, real information. So now grounds and maintenance, ground repairs, pretty much the same. Ground repairs is a little higher because I think they're gonna do a little bit of work. Let's see if I got that information here. Yeah, line striping, and then there's a pine tree that we wanna remove too from the visitor parking lot to be safe. So that kinda makes the numbers a little bit higher.
that's the grounds.
Yes, that's the ground line, ground repairs. Alright, that total for the grounds and care of grounds is $27,520. Alright, next section is the transportation for, students. That is the 2700 function code. We are in a contract with transportation, and it's a 4% increase. So all those numbers there you'll see. It should be 4% for those 4. And then when you go to page 32, those numbers are not part of the 4%. Those are based on the needs of the students that we anticipate or identified that will be here next year. And most of those have gone down, which is nice. Actually, I didn't give you the total for the regular education. The regular education total, that's for the elementary and high schools, I should say, is $764,044.20.
Who negotiates those contracts?
The transportation contract?
Yeah.
Board members go in, superintendent's there, and we get legal consult as well.
Okay.
a BA may be there in some cases as well.
All right, special education.
We were also lucky to have an attorney on the board for a while.
That helped a lot.
Yeah,
Didn't hurt.
never hurt.
So special education, like I said, transportation went down a little bit. It's, that's the 2722 function code. It's 333,000, nope. $339,599.36. It's a down of $23,000 from the previous year. Next section is athletic transportation. I believe there have been some questions on that. It's on our watch list. It's something that hasn't been used in the last few years, but we're looking to see if we can get a bus driver and maybe bring that back so the parents don't drive all the students or they carpool, but maybe a bus can take the students. And then the class field trips. And you got the homeless transportation for elementary and high school. We had a student who was part of that for last year, but they're not here this year. And we believe that we want to anticipate somebody coming in because the way the trends are looking like it might happen again next year. So that's why you see 5,000 for both high school, which the high school one I believe is an actual number, but the elementary is, I believe, really educated what the trend is looking like. So that's $10,000 for that account line, those account lines, which is down from down 18,800 from last year.
And some of these transportation costs are required by law.
They are.
For certain students.
And yep, exactly. And the homeless one can be split with another school district depending on the situation, or sometimes grants as well if they qualify for that. But we won't know until they go through the vetting process if it's needed.
Yeah, the 27, 22, 15, 55, 19, those are IEP driven. No pun intended.
All right, that brings us to the end of the general fund expenditures. You'll see a total there of $17,120,177.58. That's general fund. Excuse me. All right, next page is food service. Food service is pretty much mostly level funded. The staff at the food service, and none of them are part of CBA, so it's up to 3% increase. That number does look different, but there's also different staff members there than there were there last year. So that's why the amounts changed. So it doesn't look like it's a flat 3%, it's 0.77%. I did verify if that number is correct. Their health insurance, not much has really changed there. They don't use the food service substitute, so we removed it. FICA, also, as before I mentioned, is they removed the insurance buyouts. That is now with the health insurance line. And everything else is pretty much level funded except for equipment repairs. We're anticipating maybe some issues, not issues, but maybe some repairs that are going to be needed to fix up the boiler, not boiler in a sense of heating system, but the boiler in the kitchen. But it heats the food, maybe propane, some of that. I'm a little tired, sorry. But the kitchen.
I was just entertained. I was curious to see where you're heading.
I was too, man. I was too.
Skiddios.
Yeah, where are we going?
Yeah. Food service supplies. Yeah. And last page, page 34. Top there, you got food. We are anticipating that food costs, it says food/milk. We are anticipating food costs going to continue to rise a little bit. So we did raise that number up higher than it was previously.
Wow.
Does it just plain cost more?
It just plain costs more. I know in the federal side, it used to be a lot cheaper, but I think it used to be like $2.50, but now it's like $7 or $8 for it. So it's just an increase, and that was without any warning. They just did it. We couldn't even plan for it. That actually affects this year as well. So right now for the food service total, we're at $229,740.42 for a grand total of $17,349,918 even.
So before Bill completely loses his voice or his mind at the evening, any final questions for him?
I have one quick question.
Yes.
That was back in more of a school board on page 19.
Page 19?
There was Yeah, bottom of page 19, there's $5,000 for strategic planning. I was just gonna wonder what that was for, if it's been used, or,
We put it in, we're working on goals, we've got our short-term goals up and posted, but we wanna do strategic planning. We wanna have community input, we wanna do actual, meetings with the community and get feedback and really start to develop a 5-year or longer plan.
So just paying a consultant to run that.
Yeah, you have to be, we might look at UNH, we're gonna be looking at some surveys. So that was one of our big goals, is that we wanted to put out a climate culture survey. We wanna get feedback from families, from people that are in the community. We really wanna understand what people were looking for in their school district and, where the focus for the community in their interpretation of what we're doing. So we think that's important. And we've been kinda
I
touching
feel
around
like
that.
it's been in there for a year or two.
Well, we put it in, and then we talked about increased communication, which we're doing more with our Facebook page and those kinds of things, and newsletters and such, but we really should have a nice, longer-running strategic plan. And then things like any additions and so forth, you can start to get feedback on that.
Is there any talk of warrant articles for the school
We're
this early, or
starting
is
to
it too
talk
early?
about that, we may have something for the building, we're not sure at this point, so when we start to suss out exactly what some of those costs are gonna look like, we'll be able to make some decisions. And we'll always be looking at our, capital reserve accounts and rolling those to see how they tie in with the CIP.
I think we're good.
Alright,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
For all
it.
your work, thank you very much.
thank you.
That moves us on to item 7, subcommittee reports. Jeff is not here.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Excellent, that makes subcommittee reports pretty easy. Other business.
I have a lot of these.
Seeing none, just a reminder, our next meeting is next Thursday, December 12th. And that should be the town budget again with warrant articles, I believe. So a more polished, I think, version. You guys read that a couple times, I believe you said.
Once, yep.
Oh, and then you'll meet again, that's right, we talked about that, so they'll be meeting again next Monday. No?
So we regularly get.
Oh, you got it all done?
Yeah.
Look for you guys, okay, so they've met since and polished.
Easy when you only have 50 cents
We'll be
worth.
looking at it again. So the time is 9:04, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Moved by Sandra Jones, second by Donna Danis, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.